Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content. Subscribe and turn on notifications.
Lucas spent the entire afternoon curating the surprise. It was a Tuesday, a day that typically held no significance in the grand scheme of their 8-year marriage. But Lucas clung to the idea that spontaneity was the glue holding the fragile edges of their relationship together. As he drove along the winding asphalt, leading to the upscale lounge where Sophie's public relations firm was hosting their quarterly gala, a quiet, almost practiced smile lingered at the corner of his mouth. He told himself he was happy. He repeated it internally, like a mantra designed to drown out the low-frequency hum of anxiety that had been his companion for the last 6 months. Sophie, 32 years old, and possessing a charm that often felt like a well-rehearsed script, had told him explicitly, "It's just a casual mixer with the team, Lucas. Boring. No spouses. Don't wait up." So, naturally, he decided not to tell her he was coming. In his mind, he scripted the scene. He would walk in. She would spot him from across the room. Her eyes would widen in delight. And she would rush over for a hug, perhaps a surprised kiss, while her colleagues laughed at the romantic interruption. It was a scene from a movie. Not reality. But Lucas, a logistics manager who spent his days organizing chaos into order, desperately needed the movie version of his life to be true. It was 9:29 in the evening when he pulled into the parking lot. The venue was called the Obsidian, a place of dark glass and ambient lighting. As soon as he parked his sedan, avoiding the valet to maintain the element of surprise, Lucas stepped out into the cool night air. He could hear the muffled bass of music and the chatter of people on the patio. He recognized faces from the photos Sophie showed him on her phone. Names he knew only in passing. Faces that belonged to a world he was gradually being excluded from. He scanned the outdoor area. He checked the main entrance. He did not see her. Reason suggested she was in the restroom, or perhaps grabbing a drink at the bar. But instinct, a cold and sharp needle in his gut, pulled him toward the side of the building, toward the VIP parking area where the lighting was dimmer. He walked with purpose, then slowed, then stopped. 30 feet away, leaning against the silver coupe she drove, a car he washed every Sunday morning, was Sophie. She was not alone. Standing with her was a man Lucas recognized vaguely from a company picnic 2 years ago. Tall, clean-shaven, wearing a suit that cost more than Lucas's monthly mortgage payment. The man exuded an air of arrogant ownership. His hand rested comfortably, possessively, on Sophie's waist. They were not talking. They were kissing. It was not a quick peck. It was slow, languid, and comfortable. It was the kind of kiss shared by two people who had mapped the territory of each other's mouths 100 times before. For a moment, Lucas experienced a complete fracture of reality. His brain, unable to process the visual data, attempted to reject it. This is a mistake, he thought. That is not Sophie. But it was her dress. The emerald green silk one he had zipped up for her that morning. It was her hair, pinned back with the pearl clip he gave her for their anniversary. The woman he loved, the woman who shared his bed and his life, was melting into the arms of another man in a parking lot. While Lucas stood holding a mental bouquet of expectations that was rapidly withering, time did not stop. It warped. The sounds of the party faded into a high-pitched ringing in his ears. His heart hammered against his ribs. Not with rage, but with a sickening thud of adrenaline. He felt nauseous. There was no immediate anger. Just a profound, paralyzing state of denial. It was a foolish attempt to rewrite the present moment. When motor function returned to his legs, he walked forward. His footsteps were heavy on the gravel. The man noticed him first. He broke the kiss, his eyes narrowing, and took a calculated step back, smoothing his lapel. Sophie, confused by the sudden disconnect, turned her head. When she saw Lucas, the color drained from her face so violently. She looked like a wax figure. The shock in her eyes was not just fear. It was recognition. She knew the weight of this second. The universe had shifted. "Lucas," she stammered, her voice trembling, pitching up an octave. What are you doing here?" Lucas stood 5 feet away. He took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of expensive cologne, and his wife's familiar perfume, a mixture that made his stomach turn. He looked at her. Really looked at her. Stripping away the filter of the doting husband, he saw a stranger. "I think," Lucas said, his voice sounding detached, as if coming from a radio in another room. "The correct question is, what are you doing here?" Sophie did not answer. Her hands shook. She reached out as if to touch him, then retracted. The other man, clearly uncomfortable with the impending domestic collision, muttered something unintelligible and walked briskly toward the venue entrance. Abandoning her. A coward. Lucas did not chase him. He did not scream. He simply looked at Sophie for 3 long seconds, memorizing the guilt etched into her features. And then, he turned around. "Lucas! Wait!" Sophie cried out. He kept walking. He reached his car, got in, and locked the door. His hands were trembling so badly it took 2 tries to insert the key. Sophie was running toward him now, rapping on the window, her mouth moving, forming words like "please" and "listen." Lucas put the car in reverse and backed out. He did not look in the rearview mirror. The drive home was performed in the cruelest silence of his life. It wasn't just betrayal. It was the realization that his entire recent history was a fabrication. Every working late, every tired tonight, every smile. It was all compromised. The house was dark when he arrived. It smelled of lemon polish and stale coffee. Lucas walked into the kitchen, the heart of their domestic life, and sat at the dining table. He did not turn on the lights. He stared at the empty chair opposite him. The pain that consumed him wasn't the loud, screaming kind. It was corrosive. It was an acid that silently dissolved the foundations of his sanity. He felt foolish. He felt like a prop in someone else's play. 20 minutes later, the front door unlocked. The sound of the tumblers clicking fell like hammer strikes in the quiet house. Sophie entered. She had been crying. Her mascara was smeared, her eyes swollen and red. She brought with her a gust of cold air, and the heavy atmosphere of desperation. She saw Lucas sitting in the shadows, and froze. "Lucas," she whispered. "Please. We need to talk." Lucas remained motionless. He was studying the grain of the wood on the table. "Sit down," he said. His tone was flat, devoid of the warmth she was used to. She sat, clutching her purse like a shield. "I can explain. It's not what it looks like." "Well, it is. But it's complicated." "How long?" Lucas asked. He didn't look up. Sophie squeezed her eyes shut. Tears leaked out. "Lucas, please." "How long?" 2 months, she choked out. The number hung in the air. 2 months. 60 days. Lucas did the math instantly. 2 months meant she was lying during his birthday dinner. 2 months meant she was lying when they booked the vacation to the coast. 2 months meant she was lying every morning she kissed him goodbye. He stood up, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. He walked to the sink, poured a glass of water, and poured it down the drain. He needed to do something with his hands to keep from punching the wall. "Why?" he asked, his back to her. "I felt lonely," Sophie began. The classic script of the adulterer. "You've been so busy with the logistics merger. You were distant. We stopped talking." "Daniel." He listened. "It just happened. I didn't plan for it. It started with lunches. Then drinks. I tried to stop it, Lucas. I swear." Lucas turned around. A short, humorless laugh escaped his lips. "You tried to stop it? By kissing him in a parking lot where anyone could see?" "I didn't want to hurt you," she sobbed. "You already did. You killed us. You didn't just hurt me, Sophie. You erased me." He looked at her. Really looked at the woman he had planned to grow old with. He felt a sudden, terrifying indifference. It was as if a switch had been flipped. The love remained, but it was now inaccessible, locked behind a wall of glass. "Did you sleep with him?" The question was a blade. Sophie hesitated. She looked down at her hands. She nodded. A barely perceptible movement. Lucas closed his eyes. He felt the physical sensation of his heart breaking, a tightness in the chest, a difficulty in expanding his lungs. Okay, he said softly. Okay. She looked up. Hopeful. What do you mean, okay? We can fix this. We can go to therapy. I'll quit my job. I'll never see him again. Lucas walked past her. Toward the bedroom. I'm packing a bag. I'm going to my sister's. No. Lucas, don't leave. You can't just walk away from 8 years. She ran after him. Grabbing his arm. He pulled away. Not violently. But firmly. I didn't walk away, Sophie. You did. You walked away. 2 months ago. He packed efficiently. Shirts. Trousers. Toiletries. He operated like a machine. Sophie stood in the doorway. Weeping. A mess of regret and panic. But Lucas knew. With a forensic certainty. That her tears were for herself. She wasn't crying because she hurt him. She was crying because she had been caught. Because her safety net was being ripped away. He walked out of the house at midnight. He left his house keys on the counter. As he drove away. He didn't feel liberated. He felt. Lucas stayed in the guest room of his sister Sarah's house. It was a small room filled with boxes of old toys, and smelling of lavender. It was a purgatory. For the first week. He did not sleep. He lay awake. Staring at the ceiling, playing the parking lot scene on a loop. The kiss. The hand on the waist. The comfort. It was the comfort that haunted him most. They looked like a couple. Lucas was the intruder in his own marriage. His phone vibrated constantly. Sophie. 9:12 a.m., please answer me. Sophie. 10:45 a.m. I love you. I made a mistake. A horrible mistake. Sophie. 2:30 p.m., I resigned today. I told Daniel it's over. Please come home. Sophie. 11 p.m. I can't breathe without you. He read them all. He replied to none. One evening. Sarah brought him a mug of tea. She sat on the edge of the bed. Do you still love her? She asked. Lucas took a long time to answer. Yes. But that doesn't matter anymore. Loving someone who lied to your face for 60 days is like trying to hold water in your hands. Eventually. It all slips through. It's gone. He decided to return to the house only to collect the rest of his things and initiate the legal separation. He needed to regain control. He hired a lawyer. A man named Mr. Henderson. Who wore gray suits and spoke in dry, unemotional sentences. It was exactly what Lucas needed. When the divorce papers were served. Sophie's reaction shifted. The pleading turned into frantic desperation. She showed up at his office. She waited by his car. She sent handwritten letters detailing their best memories. Remember the trip to the lake? She wrote. Remember when we adopted the dog? It was manipulation. Lucas saw it now. She was weaponizing their history to avoid the consequences of her present. He met her one last time to sign the division of assets. They met at a neutral coffee shop. Sophie looked thinner. Pale. She tried to take his hand across the table. He pulled back. I can wait, she said. Her eyes intense. I'll wait as long as it takes. You'll see. I'll win you back. Sophie, Lucas said. Signing the document with a steady hand. This isn't a game. There is no winning. It's over. It's not over. Until I say it is, she whispered. The tone of her voice sent a chill down his spine. It wasn't the voice of a lover. It was the voice of someone claiming property. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. Lucas moved into a small apartment in the city center. He tried to restart his life. He focused on logistics. On shipping routes and supply chains, things that made sense. Things that didn't lie. 6 months post-divorce. Lucas met Elena. She was an archivist at the city library. A woman of quiet intelligence. And gentle movements. She was the antithesis of Sophie. Where Sophie was loud and performative. Elena was subtle and sincere. They met in the history section. Lucas was looking for a distraction. And she recommended a biography on industrial tycoons. Their relationship developed slowly. A coffee here. A walk in the park there. Lucas was damaged goods. And he knew it. He didn't hide it. He told Elena about the betrayal. About the trust issues. She didn't try to fix him. She simply walked beside him. We take it one day at a time, Elena said. For the first time in a year. Lucas smiled without forcing it. He felt the heavy fog of the past lifting. But Sophie was watching. Lucas didn't know how she found out. Perhaps a mutual friend. Perhaps she had been monitoring his social media through a fake account. But the peace was shattered on a Tuesday afternoon. Elena was at work, organizing a collection of old maps. When Sophie walked into the library, Sophie was dressed impeccably, wearing a red coat that screamed for attention. She approached the desk. "You must be the librarian," Sophie said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. Elena looked up, confused. "Can I help you?" "I'm Sophie. Lucas's wife." Elena froze. "Ex-wife. He's divorced." Sophie laughed. A brittle sound. "Oh, honey. Men get confused. We're going through a rough patch, yes. He's emotionally unstable right now. He makes up stories. I'm just here to warn you. He's not who you think he is. We're still very much together." She leaned in, her eyes wide and manic. "He comes home to me every night." In his head. Elena, shaken, called Lucas immediately. Lucas left work and rushed to the library. But Sophie was already gone. When he arrived, Elena was pale, trembling. "She said you were still married," Elena said, looking at him with a sliver of doubt. "She said you were unstable." Lucas felt a surge of rage he hadn't felt before. "She's lying. Look at the papers. Look at the dates." He showed her the digital files on his phone. He explained the parking lot, the confession, everything. Elena believed him. But the seed of fear had been planted. She seemed convinced, Elena whispered. She didn't look like she was lying, she looked like she believed it. That night, Lucas called Sophie. She didn't answer. Instead, she sent a text message. "I met your little friend. She's boring. You deserve better. You deserve me." Lucas realized then that this was no longer just a bad breakup. He was dealing with a delusion. Sophie had rewritten the narrative in her head where she was the victim and the savior, and Elena was the obstacle. Lucas and Elena went to the police station the next morning. They filed a report documenting Sophie's visit to Elena's workplace and the harassment. The officer was sympathetic but realistic. Without a direct threat of violence, it's hard to get a protective order immediately. "But we can start a paper trail," Lucas insisted. "She is delusional. She is not going to stop." They were granted a temporary restraining order. Sophie was served the papers. She was ordered to stay 500 feet away from Lucas and Elena. For 3 weeks. Silence. Lucas allowed himself to relax, thinking the legal threat had scared her off. Then, the incidents began. First, it was the subscriptions. Lucas started receiving dozens of magazines he didn't order. Wedding magazines, parenting magazines. Then, the digital stalking. Elena's social media was bombarded with comments from anonymous accounts. "He will never love you. You are a placeholder. That, with better is intations, and with mazdos. Watch your back." And then, the physical breach. Elena left the library late one evening. Her car was parked under a street lamp. As she approached, she saw something on the windshield. It was not a ticket. It was a single, dead rose. And the driver's side mirror was smashed, hanging by a wire. There were no cameras in that specific angle of the lot. But Lucas knew. He arrived at the scene, his heart racing. Elena was crying in her car. "I can't live like this, Lucas. I'm scared." "I know," Lucas said, gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. "I'm going to end this." 2 days later, Lucas received a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of him and Elena sleeping in his apartment, taken from the street, through the bedroom window. The caption read, "You look so peaceful. It's a shame it won't last." Lucas felt a cold dread wash over him. She was watching them sleep. The violation was absolute. They went back to the police. The photo was evidence of stalking and violation of the restraining order. The prosecutor took over. A warrant was issued for Sophie's arrest. But Sophie was one step ahead in her madness. A week later, Lucas was leaving his office building. The sun was setting. He walked toward his car, hyper-aware of his surroundings. He checked the shadows. Suddenly, a figure stepped out from behind a van. It was Sophie. She looked disheveled, her hair was unkempt. Her eyes wild with lack of sleep. She held a heavy object in her hand. A large stone. "You tried to have me arrested," she screamed, her voice cracking. "After everything I did for you?" "Sophie, stay back," Lucas yelled, holding up his hands. "The police are on their way. I just want to talk." She lunged at him. She didn't throw the stone. She tried to grab him. "Why can't you see? We belong together. That librarian is nothing." Security guards from the building rushed over. Sophie fought them, screaming declarations of love, mixed with obscenities. It was a tragic, grotesque display. The police arrived minutes later. Sophie was handcuffed, pressed against the hood of a cruiser. As they shoved her into the back seat, she locked eyes with Lucas. She wasn't crying anymore. She was smiling a terrifying, vacant smile. "I'll be back, Lucas," she mouthed. "I'm always here." She was charged with aggravated stalking, violation of a protective order, and attempted assault. Her family, who had been in denial, finally hired a criminal defense lawyer. But the evidence was overwhelming. Sophie was released on bail posted by her father, with a GPS ankle monitor. Lucas was terrified. The law felt like a paper shield against a hurricane. The final straw came 48 hours after her release. Sophie cut the ankle monitor. The police alerted Lucas immediately. "Mr. Vance, she has tampered with her device. Her location is unknown. We advise you to leave your residence." Lucas and Elena packed a bag in 5 minutes. They drove to a hotel 3 towns over. They sat in the sterile room, watching the news, waiting for the phone to ring. Sophie didn't go to Lucas's apartment. She went to Elena's parents' house. She banged on their door at 3 in the morning, demanding to see the woman who stole my husband. Elena's father called the police. Sophie was arrested on the front lawn, screaming at the moon. This time, the judge denied bail. The psychiatric evaluation revealed severe obsessive tendencies, and a detachment from reality triggered by the divorce. Sophie was remanded to a secure psychiatric facility pending trial. It was over, but it didn't feel like a victory. Lucas and Elena returned to their city, but the streets felt haunted. Every red car looked like Sophie's. Every phone notification made them jump. They were free, but they were prisoners of their own trauma. Lucas realized they couldn't stay. The geography of the city was mapped with triggers. The coffee shop where they signed the papers. The parking lot of the Obsidian. The library. "We need to leave," Lucas told Elena one night, watching the rain hit the window. "Where?" "Anywhere. Somewhere new. Somewhere she has never been." They chose Savannah. It was warm, different, far away. Lucas found a job with a shipping firm at the port. Elena found work at a university archive. The move was swift. They sold the furniture. They threw away anything that held a memory of the past 8 years. In Savannah, the air was heavy with humidity, but it felt clean. They bought a small house with a porch. They didn't put their names on the mailbox. 6 months after the move, news came from the lawyer. Sophie had been sentenced to indefinite involuntary commitment in a state hospital. The courts deemed her a danger to herself and others. She had stopped asking for Lucas. She now spent her days writing letters that were never mailed. Lucas read the email and felt nothing. The fear evaporated, leaving only a dull ache where his history used to be. Life stabilized. The nightmares became less frequent. Lucas and Elena learned to trust the silence again. They learned to sleep without checking the locks 3 times. A year later, Elena discovered she was pregnant. When Lucas saw the positive test, he broke down. He sat on the bathroom floor and wept. Not out of sadness, but out of relief. For so long, he had been defined by what he had lost, by the destruction of his family. Now, he was looking at the creation of a new one. 9 months later, a baby girl was born. They named her Claire. Holding his daughter in the hospital room, looking at Elena's tired but radiant face, Lucas finally understood. The pain of the last 2 years. The betrayal in the parking lot. The terror of the stalking. It was the price of admission for this reality. He had walked through fire to get here. He looked out the window at the Savannah skyline. He thought of Sophie. Alone in a white room. Trapped in a loop of her own making. He felt a fleeting moment of pity. Then, let it go. He turned back to his wife and daughter. This was real. The past was a recorded document. Filed away in a cabinet he never had to open again. I'm here, Lucas whispered to the baby. I'm right here. And for the first time in a long time, he knew exactly who he was. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next.